Throughout our lives, we encounter countless people who shape our experiences, challenge our perspectives, and sometimes leave permanent imprints on our hearts. Yet among these many connections, we often find ourselves wondering, how do we know when someone is truly right for us? This question extends beyond romantic relationships to include friendships, professional partnerships, mentors, and those seemingly serendipitous encounters that alter our life's trajectory. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung devoted much of his career to understanding the hidden workings of the human mind and how our unconscious shapes our relationships. According to Jung, the people who enter our lives aren't random occurrences, but reflections of our internal world, manifestations of processes taking place deep within our psyche. When viewed through this lens, every relationship becomes an opportunity for self-discovery and growth. Have you ever experienced that inexplicable feeling of immediate connection with someone? That sense that you've known them before, even though you've just met? There's something about their energy, their presence, that resonates with you on a profound level that transcends logical explanation. Jung would describe this as synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences where external events align with our internal state. It's as if the universe is offering you a sign that this person has an important role to play in your journey. But here lies a crucial question. How do we differentiate between genuine connection and fleeting infatuation? Between relationships that nurture our growth and those that keep us trapped in destructive patterns? To understand this distinction, we must first look inward. Jung believed that our relationships act as mirrors, reflecting aspects of ourselves we may not yet fully recognize. If you consistently find yourself surrounded by people who deplete your energy, make you feel inadequate, or engage in manipulative behavior, it's not simply unfortunate luck. Rather, it's an invitation from your unconscious to examine what part of yourself might be attracting or allowing these dynamics to persist. When someone is genuinely right for you, there's a fundamental ease to the relationship. This doesn't mean everything is perfect or that challenges never arise. Rather, it means there isn't a persistent conflict between who you truly are and who you feel pressured to become. With the right person, you won't feel the constant need to censor yourself, to hide certain aspects of your personality, or to perform in order to maintain their interest or approval. Instead, their presence in your life will make you feel seen and understood, not because they idealize you or place you on a pedestal, but because they recognize and accept both your strengths and imperfections. There's a profound difference between being loved for who someone imagines you to be and being loved for who you actually are. Jung spoke extensively about individuation, the lifelong process of becoming our authentic selves beyond societal expectations and conditioning. As we journey toward greater self-awareness and integration, we naturally begin to attract people who align with our true nature. It's not that these aligned individuals suddenly materialize in our lives. Rather, we develop the discernment to recognize them and the courage to release connections that no longer serve our growth. Consider how many times you've clung to relationships that, deep down, you knew weren't healthy for you. Relationships characterized by constant conflict, where affection felt conditional, where your self-expression was received as problematic. This pattern doesn't necessarily indicate that either person is inherently flawed or malicious. It simply signals a misalignment, a disconnect between who you are at your core and what the relationship demands you to be. Jung reminded us that the unconscious constantly seeks equilibrium. If you habitually pursue relationships that drain your vitality, eventually your mind and body will alert you that something is amiss. You might experience anxiety, persistent fatigue, unexplained physical symptoms, insomnia, or a general sense of malaise. These manifestations are your being's way of signaling that change is necessary. That's why, when someone is truly aligned with you, you'll recognize it not through the absence of challenges, but through the absence of unnecessary struggle. Their presence won't make you feel like you're engaged in a perpetual battle or constantly walking on eggshells. Instead, you'll experience something more profound, a sense of ease, of belonging, a connection that doesn't require you to diminish yourself. There will be a natural flow, a rhythm to the relationship that feels supportive rather than depleting. Jung believed that authentic connection occurs when our souls recognize each other. While this might sound mystical, it actually makes profound psychological sense. Throughout our lives, we gather experiences, wounds, and wisdom, often without conscious awareness. We're drawn to others who offer us opportunities for healing and growth. When someone enters your life and awakens a sense of expansion within you, if they inspire you to become more fully yourself rather than contract to fit their expectations, something meaningful is unfolding. It's important to note that not every significant connection is meant to last forever. Some people come into our lives for a particular season or purpose. They may walk alongside us for a time before continuing on their separate path. Yet, during their presence in our lives, they catalyze important changes that continue long after they've gone. Conversely, if you repeatedly find yourself in relationships where you feel compelled to prove your worth, where fear of abandonment dictates your behavior, it's essential to ask, what within me needs healing? Are these relationship choices stemming from self-love, or are they rooted in fear of solitude or unworthiness? Jung viewed loneliness not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as a sacred space where we can truly meet ourselves. When you develop comfort with your own company and cultivate a loving relationship with yourself, you no longer frantically search for someone else to fill your internal voids. It's precisely at this juncture, when you're no longer seeking another person to complete you, that the most authentic connections often emerge. The true secret isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the most authentic version of yourself. When you align with your own truth, resonant connections arise naturally. You won't need to force compatibility, convince anyone of your value, or contort yourself to maintain a relationship. Your inherent worthiness becomes self-evident, requiring no external validation. If you've experienced someone entering your life at precisely the right moment, their presence bringing clarity, peace, or even the necessary challenge to propel you toward growth, pay attention to this synchronicity. Life offers us guideposts if we develop the awareness to recognize them, but the foundation of discernment lies in self-knowledge. Understanding your patterns, recognizing your authentic needs in relationships, and cultivating the courage to release connections that no longer resonate with your evolving self. Jung taught that our external reality reflects our internal landscape. If you wish to attract relationships aligned with your highest good, you must first become aligned with yourself. The quality of connections we experience isn't coincidental, but a manifestation of our own consciousness, mirroring aspects of ourselves we haven't yet fully acknowledged or integrated. If you consistently find yourself in relationships that evoke anxiety, insecurity, or emptiness, it's time for honest self-inquiry. What aspect of my own psyche might be attracting these experiences? This isn't about assigning blame or suggesting some mystical punishment. It's about recognizing the powerful ways our unconscious beliefs shape our reality. When you harbor deep-seated feelings of unworthiness, you'll likely attract people who reinforce that belief, not because they're deliberately cruel, but because your unconscious seeks confirmation of its existing narratives. Breaking this cycle requires conscious awareness. As you begin to recognize these patterns and understand that your relationships mirror your inner state, you gain the power to transform them. You no longer seek love to fill an internal void, but rather to share the love that already resides within you. From this place of wholeness, the people entering your life naturally reflect this higher frequency back to you. Ask yourself, am I approaching relationships from a foundation of completeness or from a place of perceived lack? The answer to this question profoundly influences every connection you form from this moment forward. Jung explained this phenomenon through the concept of projection. When we remain unaware of certain aspects of our personality, we project them onto others, perceiving in them what actually exists within ourselves. Perhaps you've experienced relationships where you felt consistently undervalued or taken for granted. While frustrating and painful, stepping back to observe with honesty might reveal an important question. Am I witnessing in this person a reflection of how I treat myself? At a deeper level, have I fully embraced my own worth? The unconscious operates in mysterious ways, but always with purpose, to bring into awareness what requires integration. If you've repeatedly experienced abandonment in relationships, constantly fighting for attention or affection, you may have internalized at some point that love must be earned rather than freely given and received. When someone is genuinely aligned with you, you won't experience the constant struggle to prove your value. You won't feel compelled to demonstrate your loyalty, worthiness, or importance. The connection will unfold naturally, without the subtle competition for recognition or validation. It will be an authentic exchange where both parties see, accept, and support each other's evolution. To reach this quality of relationship, however, requires self-observation. What patterns have characterized your relationships over time? Do similar scenarios repeat with different people? Do your connections follow predictable cycles? If so, it's not because you're destined to repeat the past indefinitely, but because your unconscious is highlighting something important for your awareness. Jung emphasized the necessity of making the unconscious conscious, because until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Until you bring these patterns into awareness, you'll feel trapped in seemingly inevitable situations, unaware that you possess the power to choose differently. Imagine standing before two doorways. One leads to the familiar path you've traveled many times, the one that has brought you to the same relationship dynamics you've experienced thus far. The other doorway opens to the unknown. It generates uncertainty, but also possibility. Most people reflexively choose the first door because even if it brings pain, it's predictable. The fear of change, of venturing into uncharted territory, of what might happen if we choose differently, represents one of humanity's greatest limitations. But if you genuinely desire to attract connections that bring you peace, you must dare to step through the second door. You cannot expect transformation while remaining exactly the same. You cannot hope for relationships based on unconditional acceptance if parts of you still reject that love within yourself. Jung would suggest that before finding the right person, you must become the person who will naturally attract that connection. And this requires inner work, the courage to face the shadows that have led you to repeat the same relational patterns throughout your life. Take a moment to reflect on all the relationships that have significantly impacted you. Consider the recurring patterns, the emotions they've evoked. What message lies beneath these experiences? What aspect of yourself may still be seeking healing through your connections with others? Here lies a fundamental truth. No one can heal you. No one can fill you. No one can provide what you haven't first given to yourself. When the right person enters your life, you'll recognize them because their presence won't create chaos or unnecessary suffering. It will be a connection that invites growth without demanding self-betrayal. Someone who respects your essence and encourages expansion rather than contraction. But to recognize this person when they appear requires ensuring you're not still choosing from a place of fear, lack, or need for external validation. Jung taught that the journey toward genuine connection begins within ourselves. The quality of our relationships directly reflects the relationship we have with ourselves. When we truly know and accept ourselves, aligned connections emerge effortlessly, without force or strain. So if you're currently wondering, how do I know if someone is right for me? Begin by asking a more fundamental question. Am I right for myself? Only from this place of authenticity and inner clarity can you recognize in another what genuinely resonates with your truth. Many people fundamentally misunderstand the nature of relationships. They aren't meant to fill emotional voids, but rather to mirror what we already carry within. Jung observed that everything we experience externally originates in our internal landscape. So if you want to discern whether someone is truly aligned with you, first clarify what you're genuinely seeking. Perhaps you've experienced meeting someone who seemed perfect, someone whose presence brought immediate comfort, who appeared to possess exactly what you needed. But as time passed, the dynamic shifted. You began noticing behaviors that contradicted your initial impression. A subtle discomfort emerged, a feeling that something wasn't quite right, but you tried to ignore it, not wanting to lose the connection. At that point, your intuition was already communicating with you. But were you listening? Jung emphasized intuition as a powerful guidance system emerging from the unconscious. While the rational mind can deceive us, justifying the unjustifiable, finding reasons to maintain situations detrimental to our well-being, intuition is that inner knowing that requires no logical proof. It speaks truth without explanation. If you sense discomfort, if subtle signals suggest misalignment, pay attention. Don't dismiss these sensations simply because you wish reality were different. When someone is genuinely right for you, their presence doesn't create persistent internal conflict. You don't feel pressured to alter your authentic self to gain acceptance or walk on eggshells to avoid confrontation. One of the clearest indicators of alignment is a pervading sense of peace, and here's where many become confused. There's a common misconception that genuine love must be tumultuous, characterized by extreme highs and lows, intense emotions, and dramatic scenes. But intensity shouldn't be confused with authentic connection. True alignment manifests as tranquility, mutual respect, and a sense of freedom within the relationship. It feels like coming home to yourself, not losing yourself in another. Reflecting on your past, you'll likely recall instances where you ignored your intuition. There were people who demonstrated from the beginning that they weren't aligned with your highest good, yet you persisted. Why? Because the fear of solitude, the yearning to be loved, and the need for belonging can cloud our perception. Jung would say, this represents the unconscious repeating patterns, attempting to heal old wounds through new relationships. Have you noticed how certain people enter your life precisely when you're undergoing significant transformation? This isn't coincidental. Jung described synchronicity as the meaningful alignment of internal and external events, how the universe seems to orchestrate exactly what we need for our evolution at any given moment. But synchronicity doesn't always bring what we want. It brings what we need to evolve. Sometimes the people who enter our lives aren't the one in the romantic sense, but rather mirrors reflecting what we have yet to heal within ourselves. Before questioning if someone is right for you, ask what they're reflecting back to you. If their presence challenges you to grow, to confront your fears, to become more authentic without demanding self-betrayal, then that connection serves a positive purpose. But if you consistently feel drained, in conflict with yourself, filled with doubt and anxiety, that's a clear indication of misalignment with your true essence. Jung taught that life presents us with experiences designed for our evolution, but we must recognize the signs and make choices from awareness rather than fear. If you find yourself chasing someone, if you're expending all the effort to sustain the relationship, if you feel trapped in a cycle leading nowhere, it's time for honest self-inquiry. Am I choosing this connection from love or from need? Genuine love doesn't require continuous trials or sacrifices that cause you to lose yourself. Someone truly aligned with you will never cause you to question your inherent worth or force you to choose between authenticity and being loved. Authentic connection isn't a battle or an impossible puzzle. It isn't a strategic game where you must calculate every move to avoid losing. Authentic love simply is free, clear, sincere. If you've experienced that peace with someone, that feeling of complete acceptance without fear, without worrying that the relationship will demand you to abandon your dreams, values, or essence, then you've encountered what Jung would describe as a connection aligned with your deepest self. It isn't dependency or necessity. It isn't about filling an internal void. It's sharing the journey with someone who resonates with who you truly are. But to reach this point requires asking yourself an important question. Am I willing to release what isn't meant for me? Here lies a common dilemma. Many express desire for the right person while refusing to let go of those who clearly aren't aligned. They cling, justify, convince themselves that with time things will change, that misunderstandings will resolve, that everything will eventually improve. In this process, they sacrifice years maintaining connections that restrict their growth. Jung would remind us that nothing flourishes in barren soil. If you continue nurturing relationships that consistently bring pain, you perpetuate the cycle. But the moment you choose yourself, when you decide to release what doesn't honor your authentic nature, when you risk temporary solitude rather than settling for less than you deserve, something remarkable happens. The right people begin appearing in your life. This isn't magical thinking or coincidence. It's simply that you're now vibrating at a different frequency, one that naturally attracts those genuinely aligned with your truth. If you're currently questioning whether someone in your life is right for you, pause and listen to your inner wisdom. Don't focus on the fear of losing them or being alone. Don't dwell on what might have been. Simply feel. Does this person bring you peace? Do you feel free in their presence? Do they inspire your growth? Or do you constantly exert effort just to maintain the connection? Love isn't a battlefield. It shouldn't feel like a daily struggle to be seen, valued, and appreciated. When someone is truly meant for you, you'll know, not because your analyzing mind approves, but because your soul recognizes them. It will be an understanding that requires no explanation, something that simply is. If that person hasn't yet appeared in your life, don't despair. Don't search externally for what you haven't yet discovered within yourself. Because the moment you truly choose yourself, when you honor your worth without requiring external validation, when you stop looking outward for what only you can find inside, then genuine connection naturally emerges. Jung emphasized that the answers to our deepest questions aren't found in the external world, but in the journey inward. When you embark on that journey, when you dare to face yourself honestly, everything in your life begins to align. And when the right person arrives, you'll know. Not because they satisfy a checklist of requirements, not because your rational mind analyzes and approves them, but because your entire being resonates with their presence, without doubt or hesitation. Meeting the right person doesn't create uncontrollable euphoria or obsessive attachment. Instead, it brings calm, a quiet certainty that settles in your heart without requiring explanation. You won't feel indebted or insecure. You won't feel compelled to perform emotional acrobatics to maintain the connection. It simply flows naturally, and importantly, you'll feel more authentically yourself than ever before. Jung taught that true connection isn't about dependency or possession, but about mutual growth and respect for each other's individuality. The right person never asks you to sacrifice your dreams or alter your essence to fit their expectations. Instead, they elevate you, challenge you constructively, and walk beside you without the shadow of abandonment looming over every interaction. In genuinely aligned relationships, power games disappear. The constant battle for attention and validation dissolves. Instead, there exists presence, real, unwavering presence. There's trust, a profound sense of belonging, and an unspoken understanding that you are valued exactly as you are. But here's something crucial to remember. The right person can only enter your life when you've done the inner work necessary to recognize them. If you remain caught in toxic cycles, if you fear being alone, if you seek love from a place of emotional emptiness, you'll likely continue attracting relationships that reinforce those fears. Life doesn't give us what we want. It gives us what we're capable of holding emotionally. Perhaps the most profound truth about connection is this. The healthier your relationship with yourself, the clearer it becomes who is right for you. When you stop seeking someone to complete you and focus instead on becoming whole within yourself, you naturally attract relationships based on authentic resonance rather than need. So the next time you wonder if someone is right for you, pause. Take a step back and first ask yourself, am I being right for myself? Because when you are, the right person doesn't need to be sought after. They will recognize you just as clearly as you recognize them. If you haven't yet found that person, don't view it as a problem, but as an opportunity. A chance to strengthen the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. This is your opportunity to become the most authentic expression of who you are, to release everything that no longer resonates with your truth, and to open yourself to what you genuinely deserve. And when that person finally arrives, you'll know. There won't be persistent anxiety or lingering doubts. You won't need to force anything. The connection will feel natural and effortless, like finding home in a chaotic world. a space where you can simply be. That is love in its purest form. Our connections with others reveal much about our relationship with ourselves. Jung believed that we attract people who mirror our internal state, both our conscious awareness and our unconscious patterns. This doesn't mean we're responsible for others' actions, but rather that the dynamics we repeatedly experience contain valuable information about our own psychological landscape. Consider relationships where you consistently felt invisible, where your needs were secondary, where your boundaries were regularly crossed. While it's tempting to focus solely on the other person's behavior, Jung would invite deeper questioning. What part of you has become comfortable with invisibility? What beliefs might you hold about the validity of your needs? Where did you learn that your boundaries weren't worthy of respect? This level of self-inquiry isn't about blame, but about reclaiming your power. When you understand how your unconscious beliefs influence your relationship choices, you gain the ability to make different decisions, to establish different patterns that better reflect your worth and authentic desires. Many people spend years in relationships that don't fulfill them, constantly hoping the other person will change. They believe if they just love enough, sacrifice enough, explain enough, eventually the relationship will transform into what they need. Jung would suggest this represents a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. People reveal who they are through consistent patterns of behavior. When someone shows you who they are, through actions, not words, believe them. This doesn't mean people can't grow or evolve. Of course they can, and healthy relationships encourage mutual growth. But that growth must come from internal motivation, not external pressure. You cannot be someone's reason to change. That motivation must come from within them, within. Attempting to mold someone into what you need them to be disrespects both their autonomy and the truth of who they actually are. True connection doesn't require fundamental personality changes or the erasure of essential aspects of either person. It's built on acceptance of who each person is at their core, while allowing space for natural evolution and growth. With the right person, you won't find yourself constantly waiting for them to become someone different. You'll appreciate who they are now, even as you both continue to develop and transform. Jung emphasized the importance of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we've disowned, repressed, or denied. Our shadow contains not only our perceived negative qualities, but also positive attributes we haven't fully claimed. Until we integrate our shadow, we often attract people who embody what we've disowned in ourselves. This might manifest as immediate, intense attraction to someone who expresses freely what we suppress, or as strong aversion to qualities in others that we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. This shadow projection explains why we sometimes experience immediate, powerful reactions to certain people, whether positive or negative. They're activating something unresolved within us. When someone triggers intense emotion in you, whether adoration or irritation, pause to consider what they might be reflecting back to you. What quality are they expressing that you might be denying in yourself? Integrating the shadow doesn't mean acting out every impulse or becoming what you judge in others. Rather, it means acknowledging these aspects exist within you too, even if expressed differently. This integration leads to greater wholeness and, consequently, healthier relationships. As you reconcile the disparate parts of yourself, you'll find you're less likely to project unconscious material onto others, enabling clearer perception of who they truly are. Many of us enter relationships carrying unhealed wounds from childhood. Perhaps you learned early that love was conditional, available only when you performed correctly, achieved sufficiently, or suppressed your authentic needs and emotions. These early experiences create templates for what we expect from relationships as adults. If you grew up believing love required self-sacrifice or personal erasure, you'll likely recreate these dynamics unconsciously until you recognize and heal this pattern. Jung believed healing occurs when we bring consciousness to these wounds, not just intellectual understanding, but emotional processing and integration. As you become aware of how past experiences shape your current relationships, you gain the ability to respond differently. You can begin to recognize when you're reacting from old wounds rather than present reality. This healing isn't about blaming parents or caregivers. Most people do the best they can with the awareness and resources available to them. Rather, it's about acknowledging how these experiences impacted you and taking responsibility for your healing now, as an adult. As you release the expectation for relationships to compensate for what was missing in childhood, you create space for connections based on mutual growth rather than unconscious needs. Another important Jungian concept relevant to relationships is the animus, the unconscious feminine aspect in men and masculine aspect in women. Jung suggested we're often drawn to people who embody our anima or animus projection, essentially the unconscious image of our complementary energy. While this attraction can be powerful, healthy relationship development requires withdrawing these projections over time and seeing the other person as they truly are, not as a screen for our unconscious material. When attraction is based primarily on projection, disillusionment inevitably follows as the real person emerges from behind our projected image. Many relationship disappointments stem not from the other person changing, but from our projections fading, revealing who they've been all along. With the right person, this disillusionment phase doesn't end the relationship, but transforms it into something more authentic, a connection between two real people rather than between a person and a projection. Jung also spoke about the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to reconcile opposites and create something new that transcends the original contradiction. In relationships, this manifests as the ability to honor differences without requiring resolution or conversion. With the right person, differences don't become sources of insurmountable conflict, but opportunities for growth and expanded perspective. You don't need to share identical viewpoints, but you do need shared values and mutual respect for each other's distinct perspectives. One particularly destructive pattern in relationships involves what Jung called participation mystique, a state of unconscious identification where boundaries between self and other become blurred. While emotional intimacy involves healthy vulnerability, it shouldn't include losing your sense of separate identity. With the right person, you'll maintain your individuality even as you create a shared connection. The relationship will be a conscious partnership between two whole individuals, not a merging that erases personal boundaries. Pay attention to how you feel in your relationships. Do you feel strengthened and supported in your individuality, or do you feel your identity becoming fragmented or absorbed? Do you find yourself abandoning personal values, interests, or connections to maintain the relationship? These are warning signs of unhealthy enmeshment rather than genuine connection. Jung emphasized the importance of balancing opposites, particularly the tension between connection and autonomy. Healthy relationships require both intimacy and independence, togetherness and solitude, shared experience and individual pursuit. With the right person, these apparent opposites don't create conflict, but exist in dynamic balance. You'll feel secure enough in the connection to pursue your individual interests and growth, knowing this enriches rather than threatens the relationship. It's also worth considering Jung's concept of the persona, the social mask we present to the world. While the persona serves an important function in social interactions, problems arise when we maintain this mask in intimate relationships, presenting only what we believe will be acceptable while hiding our authentic selves. With the right person, you'll feel safe gradually lowering this mask, revealing your true thoughts, feelings, and experiences without fear of rejection or judgment. Notice how much energy you expend maintaining your persona in different relationships. Do you feel exhausted after spending time with certain people, as if you've been performing rather than being? Or do you feel energized and authentic, able to express yourself naturally without constant self-monitoring? The right connection doesn't drain your energy through the effort of self-presentation. It replenishes you through the freedom of genuine self-expression. Jung believed meaningful relationships serve our individuation, our journey toward wholeness and authentic selfhood. The right person supports this process rather than hindering it. They don't require you to remain static or predictable for their comfort. They encourage your evolution and celebrate your expanding self-awareness. Be wary of relationships where growth is perceived as threat, where you're developing interests, changing perspectives, or emerging aspects of self create tension or resistance. With someone truly aligned with you, personal growth strengthens rather than destabilizes the connection. They want to witness your becoming, not preserve you in amber for their security. Perhaps most importantly, Jung emphasized the role of consciousness in creating fulfilling relationships. The more aware you become of your patterns, projections, and authentic needs, the more capable you are of forming genuine connections. As you shine light on previously unconscious material, you stop repeating destructive cycles and start creating new possibilities. This is why the inner journey is essential preparation for meaningful relationship. By knowing yourself, your values, patterns, wounds, and authentic desires, you develop the discernment to recognize genuine alignment when it appears. You'll no longer be seduced by familiar dysfunction, disguised as chemistry, mistaking intensity for intimacy or drama for passion. Remember that relationships exist to enhance your life, not to provide it with meaning or purpose. The right connection adds richness to an already meaningful existence. It doesn't serve as your sole source of fulfillment or identity. If you approach relationships from this foundation, seeking to share your wholeness rather than to be completed, you naturally attract connections of similar quality. As you continue your journey, maintain compassionate awareness of your patterns without harsh judgment. We all carry wounds, projections, and unconscious material. This is part of being human. The goal isn't perfection, but growing consciousness and intentional choice. Each relationship, whether brief or lasting, offers valuable information about yourself and opportunities for greater awareness. Trust that as you commit to your own growth and authenticity, you naturally evolve toward connections that reflect your developing consciousness. The right person doesn't rescue you from yourself, but accompanies you on the journey of becoming who you truly are. Together, you create a relationship that honors both your individual paths and your shared journey. A connection that supports mutual growth while celebrating the mystery of each other's unfolding nature. In the dance between individuality and connection, between autonomy and intimacy, lies the art of genuine relationship. With the right person, this dance doesn't feel like a struggle, but like a natural rhythm, each of you moving through life together while honoring your distinct steps. This is the relationship Jung might describe as serving the soul's purpose. Not ownership, but companionship. Not completion, but complement. Not salvation, but celebration of each other's essential nature. The path to finding such connection begins and ends with the same journey, the one that leads you home to yourself. As you continue cultivating self-knowledge and authenticity, you naturally recognize and attract relationships that honor your truth. And in that recognition lies one of life's most profound gifts, the joy of being fully yourself in the presence of someone who sees, accepts, and celebrates exactly who you are.